Okay, everybody, welcome back to our commission meeting for April 5th, 2022. We will take up public hearing quasi-judicial item number 2, request a zoning district change for First Choice Loading, Inc. Mr. Walden. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Pete Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director. I'd like to start by entering the...
Oh, yeah, right.
Ex parte communications.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
So, ex parte communication, Commissioner Jenkins.
I don't believe I've had any, but if I have, they've been filed.
Commissioner Heatherington.
If any, they've been filed.
Cappy.
I've had none that's been filed.
I've had none, that's been filed.
If I have them, they're filed. Are there any return receipts required?
They were returned at the LPA.
Okay, do we have any interveners?
No, sir.
Do we need to swear people in? Anybody that's going to testify in this hearing? He's an attorney, shouldn't.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Now, Mr. Walden.
Okay, once
Sorry
again.
about that.
That's
Minor little detail.
me too. Pete Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director. I'd like to start by entering the agenda item summary and a copy of my work history as Exhibit 1. This is a request by First Choice Loading, Inc. for a proposed amendment to the county zoning atlas for an agricultural district designation. The proposed amendment is to change the existing zoning district on an approximate 6.5 acre undeveloped parcel of land from A2 Agricultural District to AR5 Agricultural Ranchette District. The site is located north of and adjacent to Interstate I-95 and is accessed from Southwest Citrus Boulevard. The land use designation for the property is Agricultural Ranchette, which has a maximum density allowance of 1 unit per 5 acres. The current zoning district on the property is A2 Agricultural, which is a Category C district in the current Article 3 zoning code. The district is inconsistent with the future land use designation, therefore the request to rezone is considered mandatory. There is one standard Category A zoning district that is available to implement the agricultural ranchette land use policies, which is the AR5A Agricultural Ranchette District. In addition to that, the Planned Unit Development, or PUD district, is also available. The permitted uses are provided in the staff report. They're pretty similar. And the development criteria is actually stricter in the AR5A than the A2. The setbacks are more restrictive, and so is the maximum height. The standards for amendments to the zoning atlas compliance has been detailed in the staff report. This is the location. The subject site is along 95 and Citrus Boulevard, as I mentioned. It is next to a lot of ag ranchette development in Pentalago and Meadow Run. This is an aerial of the site. It is bisected by Southwest 63rd Street. The zoning atlas shows all of the AR5A that's already been rezoned in the area, and the subject A2. And you can see the general land use in the area is also ag ranchette. So this application was heard before the local planning agency on March 17th. The LPA voted unanimously to recommend approval. And therefore, staff recommends that the board move to receive and file the agenda item and the staff report as Exhibit 1, and move that the board approve the request to rezone from A2 Agricultural District to AR5A Agricultural Ranchette District. That's my presentation. Be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the staff? Seeing none. Do we have an applicant? Yes, we do. Mr. Uden.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Uden on behalf of the applicant. I'd just like to say we agree with staff report, and we'd ask that you move staff recommendation. I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for the applicant? I don't see any, John. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll come back to the board.
Motion
Sure.
to accept staff's recommendation of approval.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Was there any further discussion? No? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is departmental, request by AA Marina LLLP for revised major final site plan approval for the Four Fish Marina. This is quasi-judicial. Do we have any ex parte?
I do, and they've been filed.
I do, and they've been filed.
Commissioner Campy?
I do, and they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
I have none, and they've been filed.
I do, and they're filed. We need to swear our witnesses in.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Are there any required mailings on this one?
No, sir, none required.
Any interveners?
No, sir.
No interveners? I
And
think we
thank
have
you
all
again.
the different things done. Move forward, please.
Once again, Pete Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director. I'd like to turn in the agenda item in my work history again as Exhibit 1. And this is a request by AA Marina LLLP for a revised final site plan for the Four Fish Marina, which is located at 2225 Northeast Indian River Drive, which is just a few hundred feet north of the public boat ramps at Indian Riverside Park. The parcel has the commercial waterfront land use and was recently rezoned to Waterfront General Commercial Zoning District. The site has been a commercial marina since the 1950s. The marina is part of the targeted marine service industry, and the proposed project will provide improvements and updated facilities to the marina. Plans for the site include removing a couple of small workshops and storage buildings and building a new 37,000 square foot boat storage building and office space. The Marina Basin will add 21 wet slips and upgraded facilities. And Martin County is requesting a 20-foot right-of-way easement along Indian River Drive from the property owner as part of site plan approval. Landscaping will be added to the site, and the shoreline protection zone will be enhanced with native vegetation, and all existing mangroves will be preserved. The dry storage building is designed to meet county commercial design standards to the extent feasible. Architectural features were added to break up the large facade facing the street. Alternative compliance is requested for the building as the function of the facility negates the ability to move roof lines and the building footprint as per the code requirements. Staff recommends the approval of the request as the code is followed to the extent possible pursuant to Section 4.874 Land Development Regulations. Development review staff have found the application to be in compliance with all applicable land development regulations and code, and therefore recommend that the board move to receive and file the agenda item and all attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1. Move that the board approve the revised major final site plan for the Four Fish Marina and adopt the resolution of approval. And move that the board adopt a resolution accepting and approving a right-of-way easement from AA Marina LLLP, a Florida limited partnership, to Martin County for 20 feet of right-of-way on the east side of Northeast Indian River Drive as a condition of approval for the Four Fish Marina revised major final site plan, and authorize the chairman to sign any and all documents necessary to complete the transaction. That's my presentation. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen. Any questions for our staff? Seeing none, Mr. Crady, welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Again, for the record, Morris Crady, senior partner with
Lucido and Associates, and I was here a few months back when we updated the zoning district on this property. This has been a working marina since the 50s, I think, and this application really just is intended to enhance the marina. We're taking a bunch of the outbuildings where the proposed boat building is going and consolidating them all into a storage building, so there'll be less outside work area and more boat storage, which is what is needed in the areas right now. So other than that, we provided the necessary information to allow the county to acquire the 20-foot right-of-way easement, and we're in support or agreement with staff recommendation of approval, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
So, Mr. Crady, from what I remember, prior to Francis and Jean, there was a boat storage building, complete building, not just the remnants of the shell that was
Yeah.
in that site. Is that
Right,
correct?
yeah, portions of that got knocked down, and some of them, they're just working off of a wall right now, yeah.
No, I just for those that may not remember that,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, this is replacing what existed at one point. It's a little bit larger than the old footprint, but I think it was Francis and Jean, because that was when the marina was beat up, and then the whole marina was rebuilt at that
Yep.
time.
Yep, the interior, the water improvements, yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Crady on this item? This is a public hearing. Anybody wish to address us on this item? This is the AA Marina request for major final site plan approval for the Four Fish Marina. Seeing none, back to the board.
I'll move approval.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
What does LLLP stand for?
That we get.
That's two L's. Where's the extra L?
Liability Limited Partnership.
Oh, okay.
Looked it up myself. Thought it was too bad.
Next item.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is Department 1, Office of Management Budget items which require board approval. Ms. Manning? Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, Commissioners. Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. I have 4 items on the agenda today. The first item is the Martin County Sheriff Department requiring permission to apply for a law enforcement mental health and wellness implementation grant. And this grant, at this point, they don't know the amount of the grant, and that decision will be made by the Community-Oriented Policing Services, acronyms is COPS, and there is no grant match required. The second item is another item, request from the Sheriff's Office for the FY 2021 State Criminal Alien Assistant Program, which is SCAP. And that also, we don't know the amount of the grant. It just requires staff time. And that decision will be made by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. The third item is permission to accept the FY 2022 Emergency Preparedness American Rescue Plan grant for $50,000. Those funds will be used to purchase a command public outreach trailer to enhance the emergency management public outreach program. There is no match required for that grant, just staff time. The final item is permission to accept the Florida Department of State of Library and Information Services grant for FY 2022 for $86,076. Those funds will be used to cover the cost of one FTE upgrade to the Ideal Lab, as well as books and materials. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Manning?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, consider language to be used in ordinance calling for a referendum on a 1/2 cents local government infrastructure sales tax item. Ms. Krista.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So back in February, the board had a discussion on conservation land acquisition funding, and that came on the heels of Mr. Mail and his ecosystem group doing a presentation for the board with Mike Houston on the various lands that were out there and looking at the 4 particular areas that they identified specifically, where you have those 4 areas were the Indian River Lagoon South, or IRL South, Palmar, Loxalucy, and then the Blue Ways program. And so the board did ask us to prepare an item. We brought an item to you in February on the 22nd. And then the board asked that we would return to have a further conversation on possible ballot language. So the meeting today is really more of an opportunity for you to provide some additional direction. I know you heard earlier this morning about some concerns with the inflation and the impact to the residents in that. And I think it's important for individuals to understand that if we were to move forward with this infrastructure sales tax, there are exemptions. The exemptions of the sales tax are general groceries. Those are food products for human consumption, and these are in the Florida state statute. Food products, that means something that's edible commodities, cereals, cereal products, baked goods, meat, fish, seafood, diapers, poultry, eggs, milk, fruit, vegetables, all those natural individuals or natural fruits and vegetables that you get at the grocery store. Bakery products that are sold by bakeries like a pastry shop that do not have a sit-down and eating facility. So if there's a restaurant or a bakery where you can actually sit down and consume the product that you have bought, then that would have the sales tax applied to it. So they kind of looked at it like soda is not exempt, ice cream is not exempt. The other things are like necessities, for the most part, are exempt from the sales tax. But if there's luxuries, ice cream popsicles, deli sandwiches, things like that, they would be applicable for the sales tax. Candy, vending machines, things like that. So there are exemptions. So I think that as we move forward, when people are talking about this being regressive or somehow hurt, and don't get me wrong, I understand inflation, and I understand the pain that everybody's going through with the increase in expenses. You know, products are smaller, you're paying more for less. We all know that. The gas pumps are not being kind to folks right now. But how the board would like to proceed, obviously, is up to you. So you heard this morning from the Guardians group that they would like some time, some ability to do some polling. I know they've already engaged individuals. So as I said, this is not a final determination today. It was more to get further direction from the board. Is it a half a cent? Is it 1 cent? What's the duration possibly that you might want to consider? What language? I did provide for you in the agenda item prior language from when the board approved a prior infrastructure sales tax for conservation lands. And so that is in there for your information as well. So we're just really seeking further direction. Ms. Woods can elaborate on the restrictions that you have relative to the wording on the ballot as opposed to the wording in the ordinance. How restrictive you can be in that wording. There's limitations on how many words you actually can use. So we have to follow, obviously, what the state statutes have laid out for us. Also, during legislative session this year, they added a component for entities that were moving forward with an infrastructure sales tax that taxpayers' dollars could not be expended in order to educate or possibly provide any additional information relative to a sales tax initiative. So, for instance, in the past, we've sometimes done mailers with our utility bills for informational purposes. We would not be able to utilize taxpayer dollars to do those mailers. Now, we can put information on your website, and we're still getting the language because we want to make sure that we're following the what came out of that legislation and what the wording actually is. So we know we will be a little bit more limited, but that doesn't stop other groups from providing that information. So we're just here to receive additional direction from the board and see how you would like for us to proceed. Mr. Mail is here along with Mr. Gorton and Mr. Donaldson, so we're all, and Ms. Woods and her team, we're all ready to go.
What would also be helpful is if we knew what the timelines were for approvals that, with what the Guardian said this morning, that they wouldn't
You
have
have that?
information back to us until May.
I think it's in here, Commissioner. I think I did it with the last agenda item. But it's a good point. Let's go back and let's see, it's on page
1536.
1536.
And again, Sarah Woods, Martin County Attorney. It depends on if the board, again, that wants to put it on the primary election.
536.
Or on the general election ballot. That's probably one of the first
Thank you, Donna.
decisions you need to make. So you need to, if you're primary, you need to advertise the ordinance by the end of May, and then we go forward. If you're talking about the general election, we are the end of July, and then it goes forward from there.
I think that helps frame the conversation a little bit
Yes,
as
sir.
to what has to be achieved between.
If you want to know really what we need direction on, aside from the ballot language, is which ballot it goes on, half cent, 1 cent, duration. The ordinance, we continue to work on to tighten it up to make sure the board's direction was for the acquisition of these certain lands. And I know Mr. Mail and his team were looking at prior ordinances and prior ballot language where things like this were done similarly.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, my memory is that the successful referenda that we've had were held in the general election. I don't recall that we've had any in the primary. So if we can verify that to make sure, because if there's a difference between the tendencies of the voters in the primary and the general, that would be good to know. At any rate, as I recall, the Guardian representative this morning said that their survey would be done by the 1st of May, which would be good for either one of the elections because we don't have to make a decision until May 27th at the earliest. I'm looking at the ballot language and the use of revenues on page 548, and it includes acquisition by virtue of conservation easements. I would really need an awful lot of convincing to support conservation easements. My feeling about conservation easements is that we overpay them for them, like sometimes 70% of their value, which is ridiculous. And then you have a conservation easement for 70% of the assessed value. So I tend to want to not include purchases of conservation easements. And I'm looking at the totals on page 1535, and our portion of 1 cent would be $35.5 million. Half of that is obviously half of that. I at this point would favor 0.5%, 0.5 cent, and hopefully for 10 years. Those are just my initial observations.
It's a good start. Commissioner Jenkins?
Coming in this morning, I was planning on convincing everybody to tap the brakes on this because, like Mr. Campy stated last meeting when this came up, I haven't really had a positive conversation with somebody that didn't have concern with our current economic situation. But with that said, after listening to Mr. Zanino this morning, and the Guardians actually based, for the lack of better words, doing a feasibility study for us to see whether this is feasible before we do pull the trigger. You know, if the results are that there's an appetite for it, I'll support it. If there's not, I won't. And correct me if I'm wrong, he was actually part of what he said this morning, which actually surprised me. Didn't he say that there would also be part of their question is to help us develop ballot language?
You said that.
He said that, right?
Yeah, he would like some input in
Yeah.
the ballot language. In fact, they actually
Well, I mean,
reached out.
I think their survey is going to help us produce some effective.
Yes. The consultant that they've hired, as I understand it, and Mr. Mail can elaborate a little bit more, because I think, and Mr. Gorton, I don't know, have you had interaction with their consultant? So he can elaborate on some of the words that possibly that she pointed to. So John, go ahead.
John Mayle, Martin County Ecosystems, thank you. Their contractor that they hired and really only has been under contract for a couple of weeks. She's already kind of provided us some feedback from experience that she's had. Some words that we had originally put in the draft, like natural resource, she indicated was confusing to a large part of the society that they pull, that they associate that with like oil and natural gas and mineral rights, things like that. So that we amended that, and then they also indicated that it would be good to put in some accountability reference. We're still, kind of vague on what that might look like. The Guardians this morning suggested a land acquisition selection committee. We have expressed that there is accountability through the clerk's office that's already there by statute on anything that, any expenditure that the county makes has to fit with its revenue source. Additionally, any land acquisition would have to come before the board on its own merits. And so the board and the public, through their elected board members, would have an opportunity to input on individual land acquisition items. And I guess as long as I have the mic, I would offer some context on the conservation easement inclusion on the draft referendum. Conservation easement was something that we got some feedback from the public following our two previous meetings that they'd like to see as a tool. I think it would have to be applied, in its best fit. And my motivation for including it was some recent legislation. It has not yet been signed by the governor, but we expect that it probably will, which gave $300 million to FDACS, primarily for conservation easements. It was amended in kind of the final hour of the session to include fee purchase, but we know that the authors of that program intend for that to predominantly be used in conservation easements. Our preference would be fee acquisition so that we can implement full restoration. We have the opportunity to do recreational elements that we might not have with conservation easements, but there may be some kind of landlocked portions of our priorities that would have limited access anyway, where that might achieve most of our goals, and they would also be evaluated on their merits. If it wasn't a good deal, we wouldn't recommend it.
I don't remember who was first, I think.
Well, I wasn't done.
I'm sorry. Ooh, he's got more to say today. Ooh.
I agree with Commissioner Hurd with the half cent. I think that's where we need to be in 10 years.
And which?
10.
Now you're done?
I am done now.
For now.
For now.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Yeah, since we discussed this last time, I think a lot of us can go out and take the temperature and a poll of residents, and I think the reason why we're discussing it again is because in all my conversations, and certainly there's the willingness of the Guardians to do a professional poll, but I think it's getting very late in the time frame in order to get all that data put forth and back, and I certainly don't think that we have time to put it on a primary ballot. That's a lot of data to crunch, and when I go out and talk to people, I'm pretty clear that right now with the uncertainty in inflation and the economy, that the aptitude has not been there. So I think we're getting very crunched in time to be, as much as I think many of us want to have a successful land acquisition program, as days go by, there's less and less chance, I think, of having that be successful.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be clear that I haven't really changed my opinion from the last time we've had the conversation. I think that, with all due respect, I think the result on what we would use the funds for is very appropriate on a multitude of reasons. I think all of us can agree that for the government entity to acquire environmentally sensitive lands that are also very important in connectivity, to buy sort of a piecemeal of environmental lands that don't connect or tell some, unifying story would not be the right strategy. I have complete confidence in our staff and the other folks, groups that would help us along the process. That being said, I think where I disconnect with some of you is the fact that there needs to be funding for this program. And when initially it came up most recently was during the conversation of a development application that was coming forward that would have gigantic economic benefits to the taxpayers of Martin County. What I had recommended, and Commissioner Smith got on board with as well, is if that project were to go through, one specific developmental project would have enough tax base revenue generation capability at build-out to fund this very vital program. The message to residents, and that's what part of, I get that the concept is that we're only asking the voters to decide. But the story is told that the commissioners are requesting or desiring a half a cent. That falls for a lot of families and individuals on really unbelieving ears. The interest rates are up, inflation is up, gas prices are up. There's geopolitical not sure what's happening, what the future looks like, that instability. And so I have to stick with my belief that there are other ways for us to create the funding streams necessary for this program. I don't think at this time it makes us look a bit out of touch if we would be saying, hey, by the way, we also want to collect an additional half a cent sales tax. I understand, and I had an opportunity to speak to Ms. Krista about the sort of what is taxed and what is not. I think some of that will be lost in translation to our residents that just assume it's an additional half a cent sales tax. I think all of us are aware that the school district has decided that they're moving forward to continue their half a cent sales tax. That would bring us to 7%. So what I would make a commitment to you as my colleagues is that I'm not in favor of this particular strategy at this time, but I am in favor of a strategy, a brainstorming session for a strategy on how we can raise these funds for this land. But I can't support a half a cent sales tax. Even putting it on the ballot, I think that just creates enough confusion and anxiety for our residents in a very difficult time to start with. Thank you.
No, you can go ahead.
No, you both did it exactly the same time.
Oh.
You want to go first? You want her to go first?
I totally agree with what Commissioner Campy just said. But at the same time, if what we're all feeling is true, is going to be the result of this study that is about to take place, I'm saying let's let the study take place. Let's see if we're right or we're wrong.
May I respond? I don't disagree with Commissioner Jenkins. I just think the messaging, I believe, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe that if they're doing a study or a survey and I'm a fan of the Guardians of Martin County, I think that, and I appreciate that they've stepped in sort of almost into the breach with us to sort of be leaders in our community from the private sector side, from the citizen side. I would, from the people that I speak to, as Commissioner Hetherington said, taking the temperature of our constituents, I already know what the results will be of that. And then the damage is potentially done, the messaging that, look, the commissioners are just out looking to put their hands in our pockets again, even when it comes back, and they'll just be like, we told you we didn't want to do that. So I'm just trying to be in front of that process.
Ms. Krista?
Yeah, I went on the Martin County Supervisor of Elections website, and she's got all the referendums on there, Commissioner Hurd, to your point. So back in November of '98, we were successful with a 1% for 3 years for Healthy Rivers Initiative. And then in November of 2004, it was another 1% for 3 years that failed. And then back in November of 2006, it was a half cent for 5 years, which passed. And then in November of 2014, it was 1% over 4 years, which failed. And then in August of 2017, 1% for 10 years, which also failed. So that's kind of been the history of those prior ballots.
So, I'm very happy to see the Guardians come in this morning and share with us that they have contracted with somebody. John, are you familiar? I don't know the firm that he mentioned. Are you familiar with them?
No, sir.
I'm sure they're good at what they do. I hope they're good at what they do. So much of what I had shared last time in my discussions that we had, the hope is that on a couple levels when you do one of these things, first you need to go out and find out what people are thinking, and we all have our own opinions up here, but actually you got to figure out what the voters are looking for and what will they support, what would they support. That's part of it. Part of that process also is when you're asking those questions, and I'm saying this in hopes that the company is watching it, that they'll follow through with some of this, is that depending upon how people respond and what they say in their responses also starts to help you form what the language can look like. And specific words mean one thing to one person, as you pointed out, with natural resources. That might mean oil, gas, and something to some people, and natural resources to most of us might mean exactly what we're doing. But if that's not what people hear and that's not what they see, then you can talk all day long or you can promote all day long, but they're only going to see one thing, and that's not what they're going to support. And so it's super important that they invest in the process to understand what people are thinking, number one, but also in their responses to what they're thinking. What do we hear them say? What will they support? How long would they support? How much would they support? Is it a half cent? Is it a whole cent? And I think you need to ask those questions. I don't disagree with anything anybody's said up here. We all come from our own perspective. But that's why you would invest the time and the energy up front to really understand what a referendum would look like. How much of one do they support versus another? Is there a heavy influence on a part of the acquisition side? Is there not? The question that was raised relative to the easements, the environmental easements. I don't know that I'm a fan of that idea, but if the people they talk to say, yeah, that's important, we should have that, that's a piece that gives us more flexibility to do something, then by all means put it in there. If people don't like it and think that somehow doesn't give us the control over what we're trying to achieve, don't put it in there. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you'll get back in information from the feedback. I agree with Harold. I think them reaching out and wanting to help us get this looked at before we commit to it is a perfectly reasonable idea. And if it comes back and people are up to here, as Commissioner Campy says, and they're just not willing to move on it, then you've been pretty much told what the story is. But if you get a favorable response and you get people that say, look, we're willing to go out and work hard for this and make it happen, it's up to us to give, I think, them the opportunity to see if that's something they want to do. And so I'm more than willing to, obviously, to support it. Again, I agree with Ed on one of the projects we have coming up. That could be a significant answer to a lot of our acquisition real estate ideas for the future. I think this gives us a little bit of a buffer that if something anywhere goes wrong in the process, you've got a little bit of this or that, that may be able to move some stuff that we'd like to see happen. And John, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Maybe you do, or Dawn, maybe you know. I assume, and I keep asking this because I want to make sure that it's something that gets asked in the polling or in the discussions. The Blue Ways projects include stuff on Hutchinson Island. He's shaking his head yes.
John said yes.
John, can you answer that? Just,
Yes, sir, it does. I know we've spoke about some of the properties that you'd want it to have on there, and I believe they're all on there.
okay. I just, that's super important to our residents up in the northern end of the county. I know a lot of this tends to be western, down south pieces. But I think on the support side of this thing, when this company is out polling, asking questions, talking about what's included, you're going to need a broad spectrum of support from the north end of the county to the south to the western to the central part of the county in order to maybe get something like this passed. And so just as clear as as they can be with folks when they're asking those questions, I think that would be good. Don, do you have something?
I was just going to add to it, Don Donaldson, Deputy County Administrator, that many of those properties, too, that were on the Blue Ways had been reviewed by the old LASC. So some of that list we can carry forward from previous acquisitions lists that were not completed.
That's great. So what do you need from us today? Do you need a motion to support moving forward with something?
We got some suggestions.
I think-
Would you like for us to return, let's see, I heard May. Your meetings in May are in the 3rd and the 17th, so maybe we could shoot toward the 17th of May to have something back to the board.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's just make it so that it's perfectly clear and that the public understands what we're doing and the guardians do and the board does. Let's get a motion to bring back, is it a resolution for an ordinance or for the?
No, direction, you're,
No. But whatever you would be drafting for May,
the ordinance, an ordinance.
The ordinance plus.
An ordinance in the ballot language, yes, sir.
So if people are supportive, why don't we suggest that we bring back language in May, what was the date, Tara?
17th.
17th, that reflects both ballot language and ordinance language as we know it at that point. And that doesn't mean it can't be modified if it needs to, if something else has popped up right at that date.
Correct.
And then that will also give us direction during that conversation to whether it goes primary, whether it goes general. I'm still feeling as late as this is taken to get accomplished that it's going to have to push out to the general because I just don't know that the guardians are going to be able to gather enough data fast enough that it won't continue on. And in July, you said was the other, July 28th was the other date?
Yeah, 5:36, Donna, I'm sorry.
So we have to advertise we'd have to have a final language and advertise and have our public hearings to get it on.
Right, but you have, if we
Yes.
went to the general, it'd be July 28th would be advertised the ordinance, so you'd
Correct.
be 2 weeks, early July.
Right.
So sometime end of June, early July, which would give the guardians and others time to collect as much as they could collect to give us the best snapshot of what people are really thinking.
It's June 10th, right?
Well, no, you've got,
You were looking at the,
Advertising ordinance
Either May 20th.
For the general
for the
election.
general. If you go down to the bottom of the page,
the second
referendum for
table.
general election, recommended date deadlines.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, just.
And you have 2 meetings in June. You've got the 7th and the 21st. So on May 17th, if there still needs to be some ability to craft language and work further, you still have a month.
Okay, so, Commissioner Heatherington.
So we're at April 5th, and they have to still, they've contracted someone, so they have to actually design a poll, put it out in the field, bring it back. Are we suggesting they're bringing it back to us?
That's what he said this morning, that they would bring it back to us
So then
middle of May.
they would bring us back to us the middle of May. I still think getting it on the primary is questionable if we have to advertise by May 27th. If there's any hiccup in that. So what your motion includes is that we would come back with the information that they've collected
In May,
in May,
and if that's,
and then just, okay.
and then make a decision sort of either to go to a June date because they didn't have enough time, we didn't get enough information, at least it's another cutoff point that says, here we are at this point. And if it's really awful bad in May, there's no sense in going any further.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
I just wondered, just for point of clarification, did the board have any direction to us on the term, the amount of time? And was that, I don't know whether the Guardians are going to poll based on that.
They said a half cent at 10 years.
At 10
I
years,
disagree,
yeah.
so that's three of us.
Okay.
Kinda led in that direction.
Okay.
But again, I would fully encourage the Guardians to be in their both polling discussions, and if they're going to do any one-on-one interviews or group interviews, ask that. I mean, kind of get a what do people think, kind of a read. Because that will help us be even more focused on what people would support if they're willing to support. Sorry, you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion to do all that. I think I'd really like to have that sort of in cast so that staff has clear direction to come back to us with.
All you need to do is to bring back bring back an agenda item in May to further discuss the ballot language and the ordinance language.
Yes, ma'am, May 17th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to weigh in on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Campy dissenting.
Thank you.
You.
Next is CIP. I don't know if you want to take a quick break or if you want to jump right in.
Why don't we take a 10-minute break? That will give staff time to reorganize and get,
Does anybody need their book
organized.
brought down or any additional information? You all got them?
so we'll be back at 2:30.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we are now on, just in case everybody didn't know that. Welcome back to our April 5th, 2022 Board of County Commissioner meeting. We have our workshop for our CIP this afternoon. Are we going to be following the schedule here, or are we going to bounce around
We're going to do the order that's on the agenda item.
on the agenda item?
It correlates with the packet of presentations that you have.
Great. Before we start, I had a thought, and we went to break and just wanted to add it in. Is John still here, or did you leave? John Mail? No, he left, okay.
Jim's here.
If he's the one reaching out, no, that's Kevin.
no.
If he's reaching out to the Guardians and talking with them about this gathering of knowledge and so on, maybe a really good idea would be to have the consultants or whoever they're working with out in consultant land, maybe set up meetings with all 5 of us, just to talk to us about our input on the sales tax referendum, what we think, what we see. It might be good to get this group's opinion too before that May date that they come back.
Do you want that input while they're doing the polling or after they do?
I think before, or I mean, as soon, I would say as soon as they can get around to talking to us, even if it's by phone, Zoom, whatever.
Yep, we'll make that
I'm
happen.
looking at Stephanie like, yeah,
We'll
Stephanie.
ask them.
You do that?
to do that. We can't make that happen, but we'll ask them to do that.
It was just a thought.
Okay,
It might be
great.
good to reach out and touch base with all of us. Okay, sorry for that. So first item up on CIP will be library.
Yep.
You're going to do your introduction. Oh, I just
got
want
it.
to like get right to it and get done. And
I agree, and I will be swift.
You don't have to be swift. Swift. No, it just, I'm sorry. By all means, move, please go forward.
Stephanie Murley, Budget Financial Manager with the Office of Management and Budget, and I'm here to present the FY23 Capital Improvement Plan. Off to my right, you'll see Jennifer Manning, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and to my left is Shelby Baker, and she's the new Budget and CIP Coordinator for the county.
Congratulations. Thank you.
She is responsible for the beautiful compilation in front of you. So for the FY23 CIP workshop, we're going to define the capital improvement plan. How does a project get here? Revenue planning and proposed expenditures, some CIP project highlights, the impact to the overall budget, and then the board review of the CIP. So the CIP is a proposed schedule for the expenditure of funds to maintain, construct, and protect the county's infrastructure over the next 10-year period. So Martin County provides the necessary and desired public services to the community, and the purpose of the CIP is to facilitate the orderly planning. Revenue planning. All revenues in the CIP are required to be both available and feasible. With approval of the CIP, the board acknowledges the projects contained in the plan represent a reasonable interpretation of the anticipated needs for the county. Projects contained in the first year of the CIP, which is FY23 in your book, will be included in the FY23 budget. CIP project origination. The CIP projects originate from a variety of sources such as master plans, infrastructure needs, levels of service requirements, and more. The capital improvement plan process. It's an ever-evolving process of identifying needs. The capital improvement plan is an important step of the annual budget process. Some FY23 CIP project highlights that you'll see in your book. While most of the FY23 capital improvement plan is a continuation of previous year's projects, there are some projects worth noting which will be discussed in more detail by the respective departments. So keep your eyes and ears open for details on the following projects. For parks, we have Indian Riverside Park and Charlie Leighton Park. Ecosystem management, the Hal Patioki Mountain Bike Trail, Banner Lake Restoration Project, Indian River Lagoon Seagrass Restoration. Coastal has the Twin Rivers Park Shoreline. Stormwater management, the Hobe Heights Stormwater Pump Station. Various roads projects such as the Port Salerno Neighborhood Restoration, Rocky Point Neighborhood Restoration, and the County Road 714 resurfacing. Community development has the Jensen Beach Riverwalk, Hope Sound unpaved roads, and Old Palm City Place and patio. Utilities has a couple of very big projects that have a lot of grant funding attached to them, the Coral Garden septic to sewer conversion and Rocky Point septic to sewer conversion. Public buildings, Ocean Rescue Facility at Hope Sound Beach, and library has the Hope Library outdoor spaces. So the FY23 CIP ad valorem impact. With the CIP as presented today, the county is looking at a potential tax and/or millage increase if approved. The CIP has an additional $1.3 million in budgeted ad valorem revenues over fiscal year '22, broken down general fund and the corresponding countywide at $19.2 million this year, and the MSTUs at $5 million for a total of $24.2 million. This slide delineates the ad valorem impact per department, which totals approximately $1.3 million increase over FY22. The majority of the ad valorem increase resides in the roads, parks, public buildings, and law enforcement departments, which are generally a reestablishment of previous funding levels, which were reduced during the FY22 budget public hearings. The FY23 projects impacting the ad valorem. So this slide represents a snapshot of projects that have contributed to the FY23 ad valorem impact of $1.3 million. Parks is looking at the Sailfish Sands Golf Course renovation, phases 4 and 5. Law enforcement, the PSC chiller and generator replacement that is being reintroduced from FY22. Roads, the various county road resurfacing projects to reestablish the FY21 funding levels. Public buildings, the courtroom security hardening and refurbishment, the courthouse security and x-rays in the Ocean Rescue Facility at Hope Sound Beach, and coastal for the countywide resiliency program. Every year I've got to have my Pac-Man slide. So the county CIP is approximately a 9.5% slice of the total countywide budget pie, which is still in the budget preparation process, and we will be brought to the board in July as we're still awaiting our budgets to be submitted. This slide is your FY23 capital improvement total revenues, and because CIP projects typically involve the outlay of substantial funds, numerous sources of revenue are necessary to provide financing over the duration of the project. Most capital funding sources are earmarked for specific purposes and cannot be transferred from one capital program to another. So an example would be an enterprise fee-based project such as airport fees to assist in the rehabilitation of a runway. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taryn to discuss a little bit of our budget preparation for FY23.
Yes, thank you. Oops, thank you, Ms. Murley. So, as we put this budget together, as Ms. Murley indicated, you're looking at currently a $1.3 million increase in your total ad valorem. So, when you add up all the ad valorem that's currently in your capital program, for this current adopted budget, you were at $22.9 million. And this proposed 23 preliminary, you're at almost $24.3 million. From a county-wide perspective, $1.1 million of that is based on a county-wide, so that means everybody pays into that. A small portion is the MSTU. And as she also indicated, those were primarily being driven by a couple of projects that were pushed out during the budget process to try and to bring a budget in with no tax increase. So as you proceed, I think it's going to be important. I was going back, and we've been talking about property values, which we won't get until our first wave until June 1st. And we've not, still early to reach out to the property appraiser. And you know, what I hear from the community is, oh my gosh, real estate's going through the roof, you know. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we're going to have double-digit increases in our tax base. I know you've heard that from your neighbors to the north particularly, but when they put on a 1 million square foot commercial piece of property that is worth a lot of money, their tax base is going to go up. We don't have that kind of investment here in Martin County. We went back and looked at our building permits. We're roughly around 400 a year, regardless of the year. So we don't have that big boom, if you will. I was going back and looking at, I know Commissioner Hetherington, you're in real estate, but just because you sell your house for $500,000, it doesn't mean that the person who bought your house is going to pay taxes on $500,000. The property appraiser discounts that, if you will, to take into account all the other expenditures that are non-property related in those closing costs. So when you go and look at what the assessed value is, and once you look at the exemptions that they might have, they may be only paying taxes on $350,000, not the $500,000. Your total tax base in '22 was, for taxable values, was $25 billion. $10 billion, your true just value is over $35 billion. So $10 billion of revenue, if you will, comes off in exemptions, regardless if it's ag or homestead, widow, disabled, whatever those circumstances are. So just to put it in perspective, if we got last year we got a little over 5% increase in our tax base, which gave us, like 11 million in new money. If you were to get a 5% this year, you might have 12 million. If we already have $1.3 million in new ad valorem, that's 10%. So I'm just want to help you. And then we met with the sheriff early on to try and get a feel for where he may be with his budget. And I know he came in last year with a significant increase over 5 million. I don't know what this year he's going to be looking at. So I think that we want to, I hear you all, you want to, no tax increase, you want to keep taxes constant, you want us, but at the same time, we're experiencing increases in fuel. We're experiencing increases in electricity. We're experiencing increases in labor. We just did some salary adjustments based on not only your union contracts, but trying to get to that $15 an hour requirement that has been given to us by the federal government. So, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think it's important as we move forward and make these decisions to understand how that's going to impact your bottom line. That's it.
Ms. Morley, am I allowed to move forward?
Yes, we are allowed to move forward. So,
I want to skip over something that you spent hours on putting together.
no, I am not offended by that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So what we had the departments do were create highlight slides to try to narrow down the focus and just show exactly what they're doing very quickly, but they're doing a lot of great things, but also saying how much they might impact our budget, which is important to us. So first up, I have library, who is not requesting any additional funding. So if Jen would like to just speak on a couple little things in your CIP.
Nothing like setting the stage for the rest of them.
Yes.
I know, I'm sorry. What's that?
Motion to approve.
Oh. Would you like to hear any details?
Yes, we would.
Yes.
Okay. So we are continuing the RFID replacement, which is the radio frequency identification system. That is our automated check-in, check-out system. So that will continue as it did in FY22 for replacement of those systems. We also have our library materials, which goes through impact fees that help support our collection for our level of service. And then we have a new addition for the Hoke Library in Jensen Beach. We had a donation from our friends of the library, and we are requesting to use impact fees to continue our outdoor spaces based on the popularity at the Cummings Library in Palm City and the Blake Library here.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, I'm looking at your sheets, and I'm looking at the Newfield Library sheet, and I don't understand it. So it looks like it's completely funded by the Library Foundation, and they're making a contribution in 2022 for 2,000 square feet at $500 per square foot, and at another 2,000 feet in 2024, and 1,500 feet more in I just don't understand it.
So in lieu of impact fees, the developer is building the building for us.
Okay.
And we would do a capital campaign with the Library Foundation to be able to put all of the enhancements and furniture in there. We don't have an anticipated start date yet of this project. It's based on the developer.
So the developer is building the building?
Yes.
Why isn't that reflected in the sheet?
We don't have any information on it.
Yeah, all we know is
Then
that
why is the sheet in here?
it's a placeholder because we know it could happen in the next 5 years.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. That's all I need to know.
Anybody else? Anything else you want to share?
Nope.
Anything else you want to share?
Nope.
How's your opening next door, the courtyard, doing?
It's great. It's being used quite a bit. People are eating breakfast and lunch. We've done some programs out there, and we plan in the summer to have some outdoor programming that's related to our kids' programming, so we can have bubbles and a little bit messier painting programs outdoors.
And how is Bookmania?
It was fabulous. We had it virtual this year again, and we actually had close to 1,000 people participate between our Facebook Live event that we streamed, as well as the software crowdcast that we had, where people could ask questions.
That's marvelous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want tentative approval for all these?
Yes, that'd be great.
Motion to approve the library,
Tentative.
tentatively approve the library's CIP sheets.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have the Fire Rescue Department. Everything in their CIP, the entire one sheet, stayed exactly the same with a small increase for equipment replacement. And as always, we have Mr. Resch here who knows all the numbers regarding fire.
That's a tough act to follow, just want to start with. Matt Resch, Fire Rescue Administrator. So this project represents our apparatus and equipment replacement programs for the next 10 years. It's outlined in specific detail. There's 2 attached matrices that really break it down year by year. And as you can see, there has been a slight increase from last year of approximately $25,000. And that's due in large part to the increases that we've incurred across the board for expenses, but specifically for next year, we have some bunker gear replacement that we have to account for. That's the $25,000. But overall, I do want to say that our ad valorem impact has remained consistent for the last 9 years straight. We've been held constant right at about $1.6 million per year. And we've been able to do that with the help of additional revenue sources, specifically in the Medicaid reimbursement programs that we participate in. And that's really helped us deal with these, increases in costs and increases for level of service demand. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Great, Matt, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Motion to accept the tentative CIP sheets for fire rescue.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. 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 All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Really crushed it.
Next up, we have public buildings. Their ad valorem impact for this year is 195, which is restoring funding for the courthouse security scanning and the courtroom hardening projects to FY21 levels, and the addition of the Hobe Sound Jupiter Island Ocean Rescue. And Jeff Doherty is here to speak on those.
Mr. Doherty, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I took the privilege of copying the library's photo. This is the courtyard next door with people interacting, so we partnered with them to create that. So that was an exciting change, different from a toilet or an air conditioner. So we're happy to participate in that one. As was mentioned, we've added one particular project, Hobe Sound Beach on Jupiter Island. The operate out of a 1990s bathroom, and at some point in time, a little carve was cut out for ocean rescue, so the structure is not ADA compliant or able to sustain equipment associated with ocean rescue, so that is being entered in. And other than that is restoration of the cuts that were made at the final budget hearing last year. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have here.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, tell me about the Western Palm City Fire Station.
That is a placeholder we were requested by the board to keep in probably about 3, 4, 5 years ago. There's no funding there. It's just a reminder. As Jen had mentioned, we're not really sure how the development's going to go, but in the mind is we will need a fire station somewhere out there. Not requesting funding, just keeping it live in front of everyone.
And what requirement is Newfield required to fulfill?
I do not know that. It's part of the agreement with Growth Management. We don't have a specific way for how it's going to be done, but we want to keep it in the mind that it's out there.
Parcel donation, building requirement donation?
They haven't gotten to that point yet, Commissioner Hurd. Fire Rescue does sit in on the development review process, and they've had those conversations. Mr. Donaldson, do you have a more concrete?
Similar to the library in this particular case is looking at a contribution to the construction of the building, because the original site that they had proposed within Newfield, I believe Fire Rescue is looking at more appropriate sites closer to Martin Highway, and perhaps over closer to the landfill in that area where there's a road connected. So at this point in time, it was a contribution, not land.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jeff? We don't have a tentative motion yet, Jeff.
Motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Good idea, though, to just sit down and not say anything. That was,
Just run.
that was good. We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next up is law enforcement. Sorry, Jeff. We're looking at an ad valorem impact of $247,920 for restoring funding for the public safety complex chiller and generator replacement project that was reduced at the FY22 final budget hearing. Everything else stayed the same for his fixed asset replacement budgets.
The picture you're looking at is a way of just orientation. This was the jail complex. The roof was totally replaced, and the conversion of antiquated air conditioning system to a chiller plant. And so that gives you an idea of what some of your money has gone for in the past. And as Stephanie mentioned, the addition is the reinstatement of the money that was reduced at last year's budget hearing.
Motion to accept staff's tentative CIP sheets for law enforcement.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next up is parks. They're looking at a total ad valorem impact of $300,000, and that's mostly due to the golf course project phase 4 and 5 of $500,000, but he's had reductions of $100,000 for IRSP and Citrus Grove funding from FY22. All fixed asset replacement budgets maintain the same level of funding.
Good afternoon, Kevin Abate, Parks and Recreation Director. We are maintaining our fixed asset replacement levels for the golf course, water park, and Indian Riverside Park and the campground. It stays exactly the same. Also, the same funding levels to repair our boat ramps in our parks paving program, and a continuation of consistent funding for all of our equipment for our golf course and parks. Our biggest change or ask this year is to restore the funding that was cut last year for what we term as phase 4 and 5 for the golf course, which is really related to exotic removal and restoration of what we remove at the golf course. And we started part of that project last year. That is the major summary, other than getting into Charlie Layton Park, where we're going to look at doing our construction. We'll have $700,000 as a rollover. And that's really the nexus of it, of the CIP.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, I'm looking at the parks paving program, and I'm looking at Twin Rivers Park, and it's rated good. And I just wanted to say that the parking lot is deplorable.
Yeah, we just signed a purchase order to do some work with Sunshine Land Development on doing some grading out there. So I did a tour out there. I believe we met and we talked about some improvements that we're doing. So it was right around total improvements out of our fixed asset replacement budget, right now for the entire park of around 100,000, and we're moving forward on that project.
Okay, good. And I'm also looking at Indian Riverside Park, and I'm looking at $625,000 to design and improve and make improvements in the downstairs, because it's been unutilized for the last 10 years.
Correct.
As I recall, that there were improvements that were done prior to that that made it unusable for 10 years. And it seems to me that the changes that are being proposed now are also going to be very selectively utilized,
Well,
so that they may once again be underused or unused. So you're contemplating changing rooms there?
what we're doing is creating an experience for all the weddings that we have booked out throughout the day, for brides and grooms rooms, which are very popular. They're actually rentable spaces. So we're creating an experience for for the venue downstairs. And so we believe between relocating the offices to the front side of the park and providing guest experiences on the river, that we're going to make it a much more inviting place, along with a small concession operation that we'll probably outsource to bring some additional revenue to those that visit the fountain every year.
I disagree. I think that the more specialized you make these facilities, the more unusable they become. Especially, they're public buildings, and to make them into specialized dressing rooms, changing rooms for special occasions, man, it just doesn't seem to be the right use of that facility. And also, Sailfish Sands Golf Course Phase 4 and 5, tell me what 23, 24, and 25 expenditures of $500,000 in each one is going to be used for.
Our focus in the out years is to focus on the gold and blue course, focusing on the greens first. That's always our top priority. But we have found, since we changed our superintendent, our greens are in great condition, so we'll focus on tee boxes and fairways, which are in very poor condition. So our goal down the road over the next couple of years after this FY23 budget is to continue to improve that asset. And just since we've managed the greens the right way today with our new superintendent, we've had exceptional play on the 18.
Terrific. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington?
Some of the revenues that we're going to be receiving in anticipation, should they not be showing in here, and can we not use that for some offsetting? I'm hesitant to spend more money on the golf course in light of what Ms. Chris did, her intro in the beginning.
So, as you know, the hitting bays and clubhouse, which is a big part of the revenue stream for the golf course, is probably projected to be open sometime in the late summer at this point, based on my visit there today. And that, over the first 2 years, is a $500,000 per year lease. But until the operator is up and doing business, we won't be collecting a rent check. And this is our first year as well of the reversible 9 being used, and we've had exceptional numbers. So I would think that the next year, when we're fully operating and everything's full tilt, that we hopefully would become a full-fledged enterprise fund. And if we could reduce the ad valorem subsidy that we have built in right now down to net zero, you will have essentially eliminated what we spend on the exotic removal. So if that's the overarching goal, is to get the golf course to just being a net zero, not using a subsidy of a general fund subsidy.
So if it comes to budget time, we might have, in my mind, I might be more in favor of pushing that blue and gold renovation if it is weighing that, or a millage increase.
Understood.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah. I had a number of complaints a couple weeks ago about the Phipps Park boat ramp being closed, and residents were complaining that was closed. They were told it wasn't going to be closed, that it was going to be closed for a short period of time, and now it's going to be closed for a longer period of time. And then they were told that Sanskrit was going to be closed. So are Phipps Park and Sanskrit closures going to overlap?
So the Phipps Park project for the reconstruction of putting in 105 RV sites, the entire park is not passable to the entrance to the boat ramp, which is in the back of the park. So that's obviously a safety issue, so it's not something that initially, we tried to make that happen, but the contractor could not make that happen. It was, now, relative to Sanskrit, which we expect to be under construction in the fall, once we receive hopefully a fine grant and the second wave of funding from the board, Sanskrit Park, we will try to keep a boat ramp open while one's being constructed. But that may be impossible. It might cost us more money to do that because the parking lot is small and this is a huge project. So in all cases, we try to keep things open when we can, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Yeah, I understand. I just am relaying criticisms that I received.
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll throw out some encouragement. Start with the ribbon cutting we had last week at Kiplinger Nature Park. We had a fabulous turnout. Commissioner Hetherington did a really nice job of being the MC. Thank you for that. I thought Knight Kiplinger did a really good job of historically kind of putting some pieces together. All of these projects come at a cost, and a cost of doing business. And I think sometimes it gets overshadowed a little bit, but you wouldn't get the turnout at that kind of a park opening if our residents didn't want those facilities to happen. Indian Riverside Park, I know it's my district, I know it's something that I worked on a long, long time ago. There's not a day I go home or go by that place, it's not packed. I mean, we went by this weekend a couple times. Every single minute of the day, it was packed out there in the parking lot. I don't know how you fit more people in there, honestly. Went to the Children's Museum. They had a ribbon cutting with fire rescue the other day for a new exhibit. They were full. That place looks wonderful, what they're doing, and that's an asset in our community and certainly in the park. The thing that always amazes me too, it doesn't matter what time of day. There's somebody walking and using the trails all through the park, and it's a great resource. And the fact that generally speaking it does take care of itself, I think is a huge success to our Parks Department as a whole. I would say this about the downstairs, the building, short of it being a Dunkin' Donuts, which I always kind of wished we could have one there because then I'd have a reason to have to go there to get my Dunkin' Donuts.
This portion of the meeting is sponsored by Dunkin'.
Yeah, there you go. Sponsored by Dunkin'. Get the word out there in front.
I'm not allowed to say donut anymore.
Yeah, right. What Kevin, I don't think says enough, and that's probably our fault because we want to rush through these things sometimes. That building is always full. It is getting used a lot. And the idea that the wedding parties have a greater space to expand and to do their thing prior to their wedding and after their wedding even, I think, for what downstairs could be, should be, might be, I think is one of the better ideas that has come forward in years. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see where it ends up going, but we've been very, very successful thus far. Seaside Cafe still seems to amaze me. I mean, how busy that place is out there. We went out and had lunch the other day. It was jammed, and people were friendly and happy, and you guys are doing a great job.
I travel 3 bridges to go to that place.
It's a destination.
It is.
Thank you.
If I have family or friends in from
Maybe
out
that's
of
what we
town-
should name it, 3 Bridges.
3 bridges. If I have family and friends from out of town, that's one of the spots that we take people to go and see.
And at the
Very
end,
well done.
and at the end of the day, I know staffing is a bear these days sometimes. The staff you do have out there, they're great. They are super nice. They're super helpful. I believe you just recently brought someone on new.
We're making an offer.
No. I mean in your department.
Oh, yeah, so we just hired, and I've introduced him to most of you. I was on vacation for
I didn't want to steal that if that wasn't the right time to.
No worries, and I wouldn't bring I have a new deputy director. His name is Kevin Kerwin. So,
2 Kevins.
We're together, we're K squared, and I'll be K1, he's K2. We had the Kevins early on when I got here in 2011.
Started that trend.
Yes, Miss Carissa started that. So, He lives in Palm City, and he was the former director for Indian River County, Parks Director, and he likes to work where he lives, and that's super important, and it's going to be a great asset.
So as a testament to all of that, when we were out there for lunch, he was out there. And I don't know if he was just overseeing, if he was gathering information, but it was just great to see him there and engaging and watching what we're doing and how things are going. So kudos to the department, Kevin, and it's great what you're all doing. Thank you.
Did you just appoint him to the Parks Board?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you all did, and then he took the job, and then of course he resigned.
Yeah.
So he never made it there. So technically,
He had an interest in Martin County, that's why he had.
yeah. So the only funny story we'll tell you, which is about a minute long, is that he has been texting me for 4 years because I've known him for so long. When he moved to the county, about all these things that he thinks I should do. And I told him that when he starts on Monday, that just go through your text messages and you can have your to-do list. And that's how we started off our orientation. So he's got a long list, apparently. Be careful what you ask for.
That's why he's not here today.
He's over there, yeah. So.
Okay. With all that being said, if someone's so inclined, we need a tentative approval.
Thank you.
Motion to accept staff parks tentative CIP sheets.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next up, I have the Public Works Cluster, starting with Coastal.
Grouping, Ms. Murley.
Election. Cluster has a new meaning.
We're more
Sorry.
organized than that.
Sorry, I didn't even think about that. It's fine. So for Coastal,
Exceptional cluster.
the exceptional cluster that is Public Works. For Coastal, the ad valorem impact of $75,000. For resiliency, all other levels of funding have remained constant.
Jim Gorton, Public Works Director, for the record.
And George Zama, Deputy Public Works Director. What's changed is an increase of $75,000 for our Resilient Martin program, which I think we could say we've actually launched the program. We're off the launch pad, and we've actually got approved for projects from the DEP Resilient Grant Program. So this will provide an addition of outreach, data analysis, planning, design, and monitoring of projects.
Commissioner Hurd.
What's the cost of the current dredging project? You know?
Yeah, it's about 11.5 million.
Okay. And the 2023 project is the South Jetty rehabilitation. That's $12 million. Describe it for me.
So the South Jetty, if those of you haven't seen it lately, it has failed, and there's several sections where the jetty has actually collapsed, and the waves that hit the jetty go through and cause erosion on the south side of the jetty on Jupiter Island. So what that project will be is to create a new jetty with a larger footprint and larger ballast rock, and then it'll be higher than it currently is to account for sea level rise. And it will be a stabilized surface on top of the jetty.
And is it just going to be composed of riprap?
It's going to be composed of very large bank and shore riprap that's granite riprap.
But nothing engineered?
Oh, no, there will be concrete, but there's nothing engineered as far as an engineered material for the jetty.
Donaldson.
Just as a Don Donaldson, Deputy County Engineer, or Director,
Whatever. All of his titles.
Going back into Deputy County Administrator, yes. Good times when I was there, actually. But anyway, what's a highlight on this one is this is in the federal, in the President's budget, and also Congress's Mass has been helping us with this project. So we're looking for the Corps of Engineers to potentially fully fund that. They would construct the jetty and then roll over some funds and be able to do another dredging of the inlet a year after they've completed the jetty work, all with federal funds.
How does the North Jetty look?
North Jetty's in good condition.
Okay.
So you also said there'll be a stabilized surface on top. Does that mean it'll be accessible?
Accessible, you would have to get to Jupiter Island to access it. There is a state park with a dock directly across from the east end of Cove Road. So if you took a boat over there or a kayak or a paddleboard, there's a boardwalk that takes you over to the north end of Jupiter Island, and you could walk up to the jetty and then walk along that area. Yeah, there is a monument out there now that you can barely read. It's been there that long, and it's really gotten beaten by the weather. But the intent back then was for people to be able to walk along that jetty, so that it would be the intent in the future.
Right. Anything else you wish to add?
We can move on to eco, unless if there's other questions.
Okay, we need a tentative approval for coastal.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, for ecosystems, we have a constant level of funding for our STA projects, as well as the implementation of our BMAP and TMDL compliance projects, and our environmentally sensitive land management program and public access projects. We do have a reduction of $70,000 that was utilized last year for the Jensen Beach West Kayak stand-up paddle access. That was funding allocated for design and construction last year. Any questions on ecosystems?
Yeah. I'm looking at Indian River Lagoon seagrass restoration, which is $100,000 a year. The same amount is being spent on the Halpatioke mountain bike trail. I just think that the biodiversity of the Indian River Lagoon is one of the most critical issues in Martin County, all along the Indian River Lagoon, and I think that $100,000 is not going to get us anywhere.
So, in this coming year, we already have, we are working on a grant to double or triple that money, so about $250,000 in grants and then another $115,000 from local match. We do believe that we can be very competitive for grant matches in there, and really that's seed money. The $100,000 that we have in there is seed money to be able to go after those opportunities to replant the seagrass. We agree that it needs to be restored. There is some variability with LOSM being finalized. As you know, when we have releases from the lake, we lose most of that seagrass. So we have to be real careful about where we install it so that we don't lose it all in one wet year. So that's what we're working on now is determining the locations that are a little more protected from those freshwater flows, and to make sure that we focus in those areas first, and then we'll continue to work out from those areas with the understanding that you do reach a point where you could put new seagrass in and have it established, and just a couple of months of releases and you could lose every bit of progress that you've made.
I think we're working with FOS as well. They've got a seagrass program that they're currently, that we're partnering with them as best we can.
Yeah, them and the Indian River Lagoon Council and FWC.
We
And
just
really,
need to put more resources on it. Everyone knows about the manatee deaths, but what everyone doesn't know about is all the other things that aren't spawning in the Indian River Lagoon because there aren't any seagrasses there. It's the most productive nursery along the entire Atlantic Ocean in the United States, and we've lost that biodiversity. We've lost that ability to be spawning grounds. So we really, really need to redouble our efforts to make it viable again.
yeah, and the basis for the sheet is we have an annual commitment. We have an established annual program that we can possibly grow. And as we get grants, like Jim said, we have seed money or in the future
Thanks.
grow.
Anything else on that one?
They have seed money to grow seagrass. Literal seed money.
Yeah, we need a tentative approval for ecosystems.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a motion to tentatively accept the ecosystems CIP highlight sheets.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next is transit, and we're not going to see any impacts to the budget. We're going to keep a constant level of funding for our bus fleet management, our purchases and maintenance, as well as our maintenance for bus stop facilities.
You know, something that I hope we get back to, and I know we don't have our transit administrator here, but you know, with the hotel being purchased out on the island and planning on going through a major renovation out there, they've got some plans for some internal public transportation, but it's something that we need to kind of get back on everybody's radar again. How do we partner with them to do more with them and expand the capabilities of getting people from really our 2 or 3 significantly large island destinations to be able to move folks around a little bit more efficiently. I thought they had a super innovative idea that I think they're purchasing 2 what are the electric cars?
Teslas?
Huh? Teslas. That they're going to have, there's new programming similar to like the bikes and whatnot that you can rent a Tesla, take it to Stewart, and if somebody's in Stewart and they need to come back to the hotel, they can pick up the Tesla and go back to the hotel, and it'll track it, and you can go on an app and find out where it is and how to get it back. And apparently a significant portion of their visitors at the old IRP are taking Uber and other forms of public transit up here. So when they get here, they don't have a way to get around, and so they're looking at building a fleet out there of electric vehicles to move them around. So just an interesting concept that I thought was pretty innovative, but there ought to be an opportunity for us to be able to tie into that at some point. Commissioner Campy.
The largest community in Martin County is Palm City. Still don't have any transportation out there. I know Mr. Gordon's promised me that soon. We could do a nice, easy loop.
Did you just do that, or?
No, it's been years, and we need it. I think it's a missing link to the whole transit operation. I'll find someone to put a bus stop in or whatever. There's a perfect little natural loop over one bridge and back over the other. So, all kidding aside, I'd love to see that be worked into the 2023 scenario. Thank you.
Yeah, so when we want to add new routes, we can go after grants, and that's kind of where we're at right now, is looking at new grants. The Island Loop was one that we did have a grant identified, but we didn't have support to implement. But we can go after those same grants in the future, and there's a lot of money right now out there for public transportation, and we're aggressively pursuing options that are available. So we will present those to you as they become available.
Yeah, it was just meant as a transit conversation. It wasn't to ask you guys to do anything with it, because that's not really where it fits here, but just that there are some things changing and some opportunities, and see if we can do it in the future. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, we need a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a tentative approval for transit. Anybody from the public wish to weigh in on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Roads?
Okay, onto the hefty road CIP. We have a constant level of funding for traffic safety measures, traffic signal and maintenance and intersection improvements, as well as our bridge maintenance program and annual commitments. We do have an increase to bring back to the fiscal year 21 levels for our resurfacing program and our roadway drainage guardrail maintenance.
Commissioner Hurd.
Tell me about the Southwest Cargo Way extension.
So Southwest Cargo Way, the extension will connect 42nd Ave over to Citrus Boulevard. It's an area of congestion that we have in Western Palm City, where currently folks that want to get to Citrus Boulevard and north into Port St. Lucie, they have to go south onto 714 and catch a light on 714 and then another light at Citrus Boulevard. This will allow them to bypass those two lights that are already saturated at times. Certainly right now while we have construction, it's very saturated, where there's backups in the morning that are 20 minutes if they have a lane impacted. So this will allow that access to occur. We do have a development there, the Sands Center, where they have proposed and they are currently in design for that project to be constructed and built at their cost. So we have a CIP sheet in here, but we believe that there will be a developer offset going forward for that project. That is the project that we cut last year to balance the budget.
Okay. Tell me about the Northeast Candace Avenue extension.
That was a project that was added in 2021 for a proposed extension of road, water, and sewer infrastructure up towards from Jensen Beach Boulevard to the Pitchford's Trailer Camp.
For what purpose?
Just for connectivity and expansion of infrastructure services.
It's very likely that the railroad crossing that's in that parcel is going to be eliminated with the improvements. And this will make that area whole so that the people that live on the west side of the tracks have access to get out to a main road. Right now it's not signalized and it's not a protected crossing and it isn't really recognized by FEC. So this will legitimize the people who live in that area and give them legal access.
So will prevent that set of the population having to go up to Skyline, and which was sort of the crux of a lot of the concern years and years and years ago about access to Skyline. So it'll give them a second way out if they do close the crossing.
The State Road 714 Southwest Martin widening. There's for FY '24 $3.5 million in land acquisitions. It's on page 185.
185. George.
There.
So this is the DOT project for the widening that's underway currently. So this is the area that's west of Citrus Boulevard to the east approach of the bridge. So it's going to involve some water quality improvements. They're going to they're building a very large stormwater treatment area on the south side of the road where they're going to capture the water from the roadway that currently pretty much discharges from 714 and goes directly into Bessie Creek, currently untreated. The land acquisition was to get more land to expand the road, but it also is to create that stormwater treatment area. It's a DOT-funded project. If you see, it's all state funds. There isn't any local funds associated with it.
And the Willoughby Boulevard extension?
That project is in the early stages of a program PD&E. It's going to be fully facilitated by the state.
Okay.
Florida Department of Transportation.
Okay. Thank you. Wait a minute, there's one more. Oh. Cove Road widening.
What page?
I'm on page 188. Its design is all that's programmed. Construction isn't programmed.
Yes, this is a very extensive project. It was fully turned over to the state, the Florida Department of Transportation as well for facilitation of design and construction. And the first part is the PD&E, extensive environmental. There's going to be portions of the roadway where we're tight on right-of-way. So that facilitates the necessity for the PD&E, and then they have program years for design. We have stressed the importance of this project, so we're hoping that they can, fast track to construction in the work programs ahead.
Well, design, which is 7.5 million, isn't programmed for completion until FY26. So then there would be some lag time, and then construction would be 2030?
Not necessarily. Just because it's not on here doesn't mean, like I said, we've stressed the importance of this project. We've gone after several grants, additional grants through the MPO, as well as just as turning over the project as an unfunded priority in the list of project priorities. This just starts the process. So by next year, they can start allocating construction funds if they identify that they can proceed a little sooner. And we've stressed that this project is needed. It's over capacity and.
Yep, it's a highly rated project with the MPO. They've prioritized it for the last couple of years, so the DOT knows that it's a priority for Martin County. And we just haven't shown the construction dollars because we can't show it until the state allocates those funds. But we do anticipate that after the first year, which starts really this July is the new state fiscal year when DOT gets more money. Once they get that first part of the PD&E done, we do believe that we'll start seeing those construction dollars being moved up into their work plan.
I agree with you that right-of-way is going to be problematic. So what happens then? Eminent domain, which takes 10 years?
Not necessarily. They may have to alter the project.
Yeah.
It may not be the same typical section throughout the whole corridor.
That's the most likely.
You'll see DOT, Don Donaldson again for the record, much like the 714 project, they can go forward with acquisition programmed at construction or just before. They'll follow the quick take process, and then the final, sometimes the payments of the funds may come out over the next few years, but they can acquire the land fairly quickly. But they would be the entity that actually issues the orders of taking. It would not require Board of County Commissioners action.
As was mentioned this morning, there's an awful lot of development pressure in this part of the county, and we really don't have any good traffic solutions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything on this one? Seeing none, we need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to tentatively approve roads. Anybody from the public wish to address us? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Stormwater?
Okay, we have no ad valorem impacts in this program, but we maintain a constant level of funding for our stormwater management and flood control programs, as well as the Hope Heights project that we received the FEMA grant. We've purchased the properties of the willing purchasers and have cleared the properties, and we are in the process of design for the piping system for the outfall of Hope Heights. Just additional work is the Hibiscus Park Ditch and Bridge Road stormwater projects that we've added with alternative funding sources.
Okay. Commissioner Hurd.
Palm City Farms stormwater model, how can that be funded?
Franchise fees and
196. It's a $15 million project.
Oh, the out years?
The
I got
construction.
you. So how could we fund it in the future? Okay, I thought you meant on the sheet, and I was getting nervous. I thought there was a typo. So the ways to fund some improvements in Palm City Farms, we could use ad valorem, we could use an MSTU or an MSBU, which would be taxing the people who receive the benefit, so create an area like that. Another way that it could be funded is through a 298 district. where they could create a district and create their own separate drainage district out there. So those are all ways that we can create some improvements. It just depends on what their appetite is as far as how fast they want the solutions to occur. I can tell you from the stormwater MSTU, you'll see that when we get to operating, but we're pretty much tapped out with that stormwater MSTU. So we would need to supplement it with some other funding mechanism, be it ad valorem or one or the other.
But it can be targeted MSTU or MSBU for those who are the improvements will be made, pay for it.
Yes.
Correct.
MSBU.
Yeah, and MSBU is.
MSBU would be the best option.
So the one thing to keep in mind, though, is the preliminary results of that study do show that the most critical improvements to, at least in the northern two basins, have to occur in the primary urban service district. So the changes that need to happen aren't actually in Palm City Farms, they're in Palm City. Those are the most critical that are causing some backups and flooding in Palm City Farms. So Danforth Creek, the area immediately north of County Road 714, that area is a restriction. And Bessie Creek, there's some culverted crossings in the Martin Down subdivision that are restrictions that are actually reducing the flow of water that can drain out of Palm City Farm. So it causes temporary flooding. Both of those are restrictions. They're not restrictions that the pipes were put in at the wrong size by any means. It's just a matter of if we want to maximize flow, those are the things we would have to do to maximize those flows.
Okay, thanks.
So just curious on that one, if you were to do a 298, can a 298 fund outside of the boundary? Like with what you were just describing?
No.
No, they would have to fund within their boundary.
So how do you fund those off-site improvements?
Those off-site improvements you couldn't, but there's plenty of internal improvements that also need to be done. There's years and years of people filling in ditches without permits and not maintaining their ditches and things like that. Those are the things that 298 could do very easily and very well. But you're absolutely right. They couldn't construct something outside.
Same thing with an MSBU or an MSTU, it wouldn't matter.
No, but they do qualify well within our hazard mitigation grant program, which we have added quite a few of those projects on already.
So, yeah.
We're seeking grants for those types of projects.
That's our methodology right now is we don't have local funding, but we're looking for grant opportunities and have been applying for grants this year to try to fund those improvements or maximize available funds to be able to make those improvements. Because once you make those, then you're on to the next thing down the list as far as what's the next thing that we could do to improve recovery rates.
Campy.
Thank you. Appreciate the conversation. Also, the last couple of fixes that Mr. Gordon was discussing, obviously that has nothing to do with Palm City Farm residents. They suffer the consequences of those restrictions, so they're not going to want to chip in for that. I want to compliment our staff. We've had a lot of meetings out there. We've done studies and surveys and all sorts of things to figure out, because it's a very comprehensive problem, so it's a very sort of comprehensive fix that's necessary. I would just want to be cautious for the folks in Palm City Farms that are listening that we're not just going to put the whole entire bill on them, because they have chipped in tax dollars for projects that were handled in other portions of the county. So we'll have to figure out exactly what's what. The concept of grants at the state and federal level are important, resiliency grants and stuff like that. Flooding doesn't just happen right along the coastline. There is a backup impact that affects these folks that are on sort of like integral waterways. So I appreciate the efforts of our staff, and to be continued. I'd make a motion to accept Stormwater Management's tentative CIP sheets.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public? Stephanie, you were leaning forward like...
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That's it for you guys?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next up is community development. The estimated CIP TIF value increase for the CRAs is $395,000 over FY '22, and Susan's here to chat.
Scores, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Susan Corres, Office of Community Development. CRA projects are pretty much on course, and we're continuing our focus on infrastructure and, of course, realizing our community redevelopment plan visions. As far as infrastructure goes, we're going to be finishing up Rio septic to sewer, and that the Rio CRA is then going to join the Jensen CRA as the second CRA area that is completely available for sewer and water. So that's exciting. Water installation continues in Salerno. That project should also be completed by the end of this year. And that is going to make Salerno as well ready for the sewer projects that are, the septic projects that are coming along, sewer projects that are coming along, because most of the majority of residents and businesses will have availability to water. Things that are changing for us, really nothing as far as, we're just going to continue doing that. We're going to have a new stormwater drainage roadway project, triple threat, in Hobe Sound. We've updated our stormwater management master plan for Hobe Sound, and that has indicated that the area of A1A from Bridge South is going to be our focus for the future. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Commissioners? Good. Nothing? Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for tentative approval for the Office of Community Development. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Susan, thank you. Airport?
Next up, we have airport that is funded by Airport Enterprise Funds, and really just keeping level the airport facility improvements, pavement and lighting projects per the FAA regulations. Oh, and Sam's here.
Good afternoon, Sam Carver, Morgan County Airport Manager, and I did take the picture.
Yes.
Yes.
He delivered.
Yeah. So the basic changes relate strictly to pavement rehabilitation projects. We have two projects that are pretty big. One for the rehabilitation of runway 725 and taxiway Alpha. So that's pretty much comes from our matching local funds. Any questions?
Move approval?
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Sam, thank you. Solid waste?
Solid waste, you're looking at a reduction of solid waste fees at about 1.8 million, and Mr. Sam Amerson's here, and he's definitely not least important because he's last.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Good afternoon.
Before you start, I want to pick up where Ed left off. I think it was 2 weeks ago when you talked about going out to the recycle drop-off. It's my third time out there, I think, in the last 6 or so months. I couldn't echo what Ed had to say even more so. The staff out there is fabulous. They're courteous, they're quick, they're right on it. You couldn't ask for a better system that you have going on out there. So again, to your staff and all the people who make what could be an awful process a really great process. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the comment, and
And it was Amelia's first visit out to the recycle place. She thought it was really amazing and wanted to get out and help, actually. But I thought better of that at this point.
Would suggest not, but that's okay.
We did too. She was in her bare feet, so that didn't really qualify, and it just didn't. Really threw you off your game.
Sure. For the record, Sam Amerson, Utilities and Solid Waste Department Director. We'll see a reduction of about 1.8 million for over 2022. We have some significant fluctuations year to year, but there's really nothing significant over the next 5 years. The primary project we're looking at will be asking for additional funding next year, and that's for the waste management property. We're under procurement right now for that. You authorized to purchase that land. That's moving forward, and then we'll be doing some design next year, and then the following year we'll have a significant request for construction of that site for the recycling and the vegetation processing. But other than that, it's pretty much business as usual for solid waste.
Great.
Speaking of solid waste, I saw Jeff Saban this weekend. He lives in my neighborhood. And I said, I haven't seen you in so long. He said he's just been covered up trying to put, trying to help Port St. Lucie. We are so lucky that we signed the contract that we signed. It's a bad situation that they have.
Sam, we could say you're number one in the number two business.
Thank you. I think I've heard you mention that a time or two. But that's okay. It's our bread and butter.
It's a timeless comment.
We're good with that.
Commissioner Hurd, thank you for saying that, because
Smells like money.
I don't know that I'm completely familiar with all the details, but I've heard some dribs and drabs about some things that are going on up there. And, you know, we took a little bit of criticism for what we did with our contract and the certainty that, at least from my perspective, that was built into what we did. And I think if people were to go back and look at that decision based upon others' decisions, we absolutely made the right decision. So
It can't just be strictly dollars and cents. If you remember, we discussed if we were buying trucks, then the dollar amount really makes a difference. When you're buying a service that, to Waste Management's disadvantage, they do very well. So people just have a level of expectation that that service is going to hit at a very high level. And people figured, well, it's all the same. It doesn't make a difference if it's Waste Management or one of the other people that bid. One of the bidders only had 5 contracts in the whole state of Florida and was brand new. And the other one has been struggling, and that's before we knew. I mean, I guess we were starting to hear about that a little bit, but what's happening now, not just in St. Lucie and Port St. Lucie, but elsewhere in Florida, if you have relatives or friends that live elsewhere in the state, this is happening everywhere else. And for us, it's just sort of nice business as usual. So, yeah, we dodged that bullet smartly.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's really weird seeing that next picture coming up just following that presentation. It's tasting.
Yeah, when I submitted that, we got a response from OMB that was something to the effect of LOL. So
first
Stephanie
of all,
thought it was cute.
motion was unanimous on the prior motion, just so we didn't
Thank you.
pass over that, gloss over that. It was struck me when you saw best tasting following a landfill photo. Go ahead.
And for, really for 22, or 23, excuse me, most of what we do are replacement projects, and they recur year after year after year, so there's nothing really exciting about that. You are aware of 2 major projects in the septic to sewer program. That's the Coral Gardens and the Golden Gate. You approved the design contract for Coral Gardens today. We'll be back in a couple of weeks or the following meeting with award of a contract for Rocky Point. So those 2 total approximately $31 million, and so those are our 2 significant projects in utilities. We do have $1 million slated for design for the Martin Downs Water Treatment addition because we're at a point that we've reached 80% of capacity on our highest demand day, and what the state requires is once you reach 80% of your highest demand, you must start design for the next phase of capacity, and so that's what that would be allocated for.
80% were at Tropical Farms?
80% total.
Oh, total.
Total system. Because we are a consolidated system at this point. But that's pretty much it for utilities. If you had any.
At some point, will you be coming back to us with options as to what that looks like?
Yes, absolutely. We did a study. We had a study done and completed in December of 19. We looked at 3 options for that. One was a raw water main from Martin Downs. We've got 4 existing wells there that have been on mothballed for a while since that acquisition years ago. That was to raw water main to Tropical. It was very expensive, very difficult route, requiring acquisition of land and easements. We also looked at expanding Tropical Farms. The Martin Downs option was the most cost-effective over time as far as capital outlay and operations.
So sort of bringing that back online?
Yes. We've got 2 existing storage tanks there that have been kind of offline, and we plan to utilize those.
So the reason why I asked if we could have an item on that is that I think last time we talked about it, I might have had a very different opinion from what most might have thought. And that's why I'd kind of like to talk about it again so that we sort of have input, unless that decision has somehow been finalized and already made. Because it may or may not be the right thing to do with that facility. I don't know. I know cost is important, but so is infrastructure and how you do it, and what other opportunities by tying in other things would that get for us, and then also Newfield, where does that play in that conversation? You don't have to answer it now. I think that's why we ought to talk about it, and maybe before we have the agenda item, if you could schedule another round with us and come see us and chat with us, I think that would be helpful.
Be glad to do
Certainly
that.
for me, anyway. Did we have a motion on this, or we did not? I don't believe. Tentative.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a tentative approval for utilities, and a second. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Sam, thank you very much.
And Commissioner, seeing that, just for the general public that's watching this process, this CIP is a large document, no doubt. But these projects, for the most part, you've seen year after year after year. They're in these out years for design and then construction, so they're not relatively new. So there's not a desire to go sheet by sheet by sheet when these projects are just a continuation. We've highlighted those areas where you've had new projects coming in. I did want to, for like the road MSTU, particularly the reason there's an increase there in ad valorem is because of the reduction that they've been experiencing in gas tax. And in order to keep that funding level constant, we have to fill it somewhere. So the ad valorem obviously is being utilized there. And so I just think for the public, it's important to also understand that the total of as Mr. Emerson said, his total for his utilities went from 31.4 to 38.1. There's an increase of almost $7 million, but yet there's no ad valorem impact there. It's all utility projects. So even though your total may go up close to $7 million, your taxes are not being impacted. So again, I make myself available to anybody that wants to sit down and go through this and better understand it, because it's very difficult for us when we hear people say, oh, your total's gone up, taxes are going up, when in fact they're not. So that's all.
Okay, we are technically at our 5:05. Anybody from the public wish to address the board at this time? See no one in the audience. I'll come back to the Commissioner. Commissioner Jenkins, you have anything for the end of the day?
Thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington?
Thank you, Stephanie. Great job presenting.
Commissioner Campy?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same thing. We went through this process relatively quickly, not only with our budgeting team, but each of the departments and the people that work with them. They put the sheets together. These are the projects that make Martin County great. They're very complicated, they're expensive and hard to figure out how to pay for, but if we went through each one again and looked at the money that's come from outside sources, like Ms. Christie said, not out of taxpayers' pockets directly, we are very fortunate. There are a lot of other communities that just look to pay for things without all of the unique funding strategies that our people have. I always say our county staff can take a dollar and turn it into $8, and that's something that we sort of just breeze over, but it's super important, because the projects that we're able to approve would be hundreds of millions of dollars for our own taxpayers if we weren't able to look outside of the county for the money.
Agreed.
Commissioner Hurd?
That's it.
Ms. Krista?
Well, I was remiss this morning. I should have made an announcement. So I don't know if any of you were here on Friday in the afternoon, but about 2 o'clock, the Blake Library was turned into, the Armstrong Room was turned into a speed hiring environment. From 2 to roughly, we ended around 6 o'clock because it seemed to have fallen off. But the intent was you came, you filled out an application, you were entered into our system, you sat down, you interviewed, and then you were giving a offer letter on the spot if you passed the lab was there to do the analysis test that we have folks do, and people walked out of there hired with a letter. I know we hired one individual's son, and he was all excited because into the Public Works Maintenance Division. And then there was another person who was a high commodity that Public Works wanted, but Utilities actually ended up getting the individual. So it was just very successful. It was very well ran. Staff did a phenomenal job, and I would see places like Florida Association of Counties and other entities looking to us as a model. For those of you that were over there, I think you were amazed, and we were very successful. So
In the future, we could have like a draft where they could go up and sort of get first pick, second.
highest bidder.
Must have been sad if
18 hires.
18 hires.
Must have been sad if you went through that whole process and didn't get the letter.
I mean, if you think, I mean, it was phenomenal, like, particularly the one young man, he's going to go home and his parents are going to do backflips because he's actually going to have a job. And Seaside Cafe, I think Mario was there, he had like 4. And then what also was interesting is we use Resource too for like manpower for contracted services. And we were able to hire some of those individuals on the spot. And then the Resource individual, Tim, was there, and he was getting the backfill. So he was happy. He got 4 additional people onto his roster. So it was just a very, very good experience. And I can't say more about how well staff did. It was great. All staff. We had every department there.
Well, it was marketed well. I saw the banners and the signs and the things all over.
Very productive 4 hours.
It was.
Ms. Woods, you have anything? We are adjourned.